This episode is brought to you by North Texas Honda Dealers. North Texas Honda Dealers, they're here to help.
He has time, launches it to the end zone. Touchdown! Terrence Williams!
The throw goes to the right side for Crabtree. It's caught. He he's going hard there, Red Raider.
Bunty up the 10. Bunty up the right sideline.
Yep, he's got to go. He's tackled. Sam Houston wins it. The Bearcats capture their first FCS championship.
Welcome to the Republic of Football. I'm your host, the college editor here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, Ishmael Johnson. Thank you for joining us on our weekly pregame preview episode, heading into week 2 officially of college football, alongside staff writer Carter Yates. How you doing, bud?
It is so good to have football back.
It really
isn't
is.
It?
It
I was sitting
yeah.
at my house Sunday and Monday, just with the games on TV, sitting with my parents. Yes, I still live at home with my parents. And it's just so good to have it there, even if you aren't paying attention fully.
Sure.
Because then last night we were on Celebrity Family Feud again, and I was like, all right, we need football to come back right away.
When it's not there, you realize, like, oh, actually, that was kind of fun the other day. Let's do that again. Yeah. No, I agree. Everyone's favorite Mal Pal's with us as well, Mallory Hartley. Hi, Mallory.
Hi. Yeah, I got a YouTube TV subscription this week, and it's the coolest thing ever because you can have 4 college football games pulled up at once, and nothing in this world makes my heart happier than that.
It's
so
pretty.
I had a good weekend.
It is great. I was worried about, like, because I felt like before last week, I felt like I was like, it was more of anxiety for me. It's like, oh, geez, the season's already here. Like, I was kind of like worried about if I was going to be kind of overwhelmed by the season. Mm-hmm. But then, like, as I was sitting there, I was at the SMU game, attended the SMU game, and I was sitting there and I had the Colorado TCU game on, and I was like, oh yeah, I missed this. Like, game going on in front of me, also live, watching one going on. Later on, I was on my phone checking some other game. I was like, oh yeah, I do. I actually miss double screening, triple screening it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh yeah,
keeping track on Twitter. I did miss it. So a lot of the anxiety went out the window, and it was just like, yeah, I was happy.
Once Gus Johnson's voice comes through,
oh
your anxiety just falls away.
Yes. It hits different, man. It hits different.
And then we had like 2 really good games, one on Sunday, one on Monday, which rocked.
100%.
So that was fun.
It definitely helped. Definitely helped take away all the jitters. And then it also helped that, like, because it was the first full weekend, like, every block was full. So you had the early game, you had the middays, and you had the late games, and it was like, okay, like, we were all watching Tech in Wyoming late, and it was like, this is cool. It's 9 o'clock. We're still watching football, right? So it is good. This weekend's our first, I guess, full amateur to pros weekend, I guess. Is it?
Yeah, wall to wall.
Yeah. We get full Friday or Thursday through Sunday. Jeez, for the first time.
I have to set my 3 lineups. I'm in 3 fantasy leagues this year.
Jesus,
as well.
You're in 3?
Yep.
I gave up on that a long time
set your
ago.
lineup tonight or tomorrow.
I didn't join the office one, and
Yes.
I wanted to, but I was
that would have been
4. I would have been 4, and that would have been too much time spent on fantasy football because I'm already very locked into my other
before
leagues,
we get into the show, I'm curious about your guys. Do you have any fantasy like superstitions or things like that? So, because I do. I'm only in 2. I'm in the office league that we have here, and then I'm in a keeper league with a lot of my friends. Mm-hmm. That's it. I have a couple superstitions because I don't want to be that guy that's like angry. That's like, oh, I hope my team wins, but I hope we get lit up for 400 yards because I have so and so as a quarterback. I hate that. Yeah. I'm not doing that. Yeah. So I have a rule: I don't draft any players from teams I don't like or divisional rivals.
Okay.
And then I leave maybe 1 or 2 slots for a favorite team of mine because I don't like the whole, like, Derrick Henry's on a breakaway. Oh, he went down at the 1 to waste time. Oh, score, you idiot. I don't like that guy either.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't want to put too much pressure on my personal team to, like, carry my fantasy team. So I have, like, little superstitions like that I do because I don't want to cheer for a team I don't like because of fantasy reasons. So
I do have Tony Pollard on my work. Like, now my work, I'm in 3,
before,
so I'm
in.
I'm in 3, so I'm in 1 with all my guy friends from back home, from the ag.
Sure.
I'm also in the work league, and then I'm in 1 with my mom and her friends and their kids, their daughters. Yeah. So the work league one is the one I care most about because I feel like there's more at stake there.
You got to hear about it every day.
And I got to hear about it every day too. So I drafted Tony Pollard. So I don't know if that's good or bad because my anxiety might be through the roof because that's the league I care about. And watching him, I'm like, I love this guy, I love this team, but like, put up some points.
I don't have any superstitions. I'll draft anybody anywhere, but if the Dallas Cowboys are on and someone's on my fantasy team, I don't think about my fantasy team at all.
Right.
I just
Okay.
go full
Yeah.
Cowboys.
Yeah, I know people who are like that.
That's the type of guy I am. I'm just selfless.
No,
you
sure,
know?
100%. Yeah. All right, listen.
Jeez.
Anyway, no, I also.
All right, come down here.
I'm not the guy that's like, I got to pay attention to 7 games at once.
Yeah.
I got the app. That's fine. Like, me watching is not going to change the fact if he's going to score or not. So I don't really
True.
care that much. So, yeah. Fantasy football starting up this week, too. So, before we get into our previews for the week, run you down a little bit of what we got. Off the top, we'll talk a little bit about the power poll, kind of wrap up last week. We, listen to our Sunday recap episode or listen to any of the recap episodes on any of our respective ROF, Dave Campbell's ROF affiliate shows. They all went through their ups and downs, right? Various, depends on which show you listen to, whether or not it's a happy show or a kind of a soul-searching show. We'll go through a little bit of the power poll, like I mentioned. Then we'll go into our 3 big games and then the week previews. I do want to give a quick plug to a couple stories we have up on the site right now. Craven has a great story on GJ Kinney and Jeff Traylor's connection. Of course, they play this weekend. He also has a story on SMU's kind of rise back to prominence going to the ACC. I contributed a couple quotes to that one from after their home opener against La Tech. Carter Yates has a story now up over Jalen Milroe and Quinn Ewers, kind of their intertwined destinies, weirdly enough, and involving Steve Sarkisian as well. Of course, that all comes to a head on Saturday when Texas plays Alabama. And then lastly, Corey Hogue as well has put out a couple stories. One from the 6 quarters of an HBCU game, for those of you that don't know. 0 quarter and 5th quarter are when the bands kind of play. And so at an HBCU game, so he kind of was at the Labor Day Classic and had a really good feature on that. And then, if you may have seen this weekend, there was a 96-0 score from featuring UT Permian Basin, and he went into exactly what happened with that, because there were some things that were more complicated than just one team got run over. There were actually some complications on the other side that made that kind of results more liable to happen, I should say. So all that's up on TexasFootball.com. Please subscribe, all that stuff. And we also have a commitment later today as well. I want to make sure I got the right player. Greg Powers actually stepped out of the office to go set that up.
Zena.
Yes. Let me see if I can find it really quick as I scroll through. Yes, Zena Omeozulu from Allen. So Greg Powers stepped out. That'll be at 6 p.m. on TexasFootball.com or DCTF Twitter. Everywhere you can stream, Texan Live. Anywhere you can stream, you'll find links to that at 6 p.m. So, All right, Mallory, let's throw up that power poll, because the weekend happened, which means games were played, which means things are moved around.
I think every single team moved except Texas.
Yeah.
Every single one of them moved.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
Because I had to put this together.
It was a chaotic week one.
It was a
chaotic
week one.
Unfortunately, you see the mean green there, replacing Sam Houston at the bottom.
Call.
For those that don't,
Sad
call. For those of you that don't know, Sam Houston, of course, lost, but I would say 14-0 at BYU is a lot more respectable than
North Texas. On the other hand,
losing to a Cal
at
team
home versus Cal. I get it. I understand. Yes.
Anyway,
I understand.
So I'll be very honest. I did not watch any of the North Texas game this Saturday because I was, traveling.
Don't worry, I did that for you.
And I walked up yesterday to check in with Mallory about the mean green, and she was like, it was really bad. And I said, really? Okay. I'd been to North Texas a couple times, and then I was like, okay, I'll watch it tonight and see for myself. And oof.
Yeah.
It's
not an exaggeration. Bad is a
it might be
understatement.
it might be what they used to call a year 0. As in, coach doesn't have necessarily a first year. He has a year, really, that he has to kind of work out the kinks, and then he has his first year.
Here's the thing. I don't want to throw the S word out there.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to right now. It was one game, but kind of soft. Like, it looked kind of soft.
Defense was pretty bad.
The defense looked pretty soft.
We'll talk about them again because, they're favored in this next game because they're playing a team that's very bad in FIU, but yeah, it was a bad start. My Bobcats jumped up to number 5, which
insane.
I did not expect that, obviously, after the Baylor win. Baylor, one of the team that's kind of in a soul-searching mode. TCU, something tells me we'll look back on that TCU loss and think it probably wasn't as bad.
Probably wasn't as bad.
I totally agree.
I don't think Colorado's going to win 10 games, but I think they may be a bowl team. And I think we'll look at that as respectably okay, because I think TCU is probably a bowl team, right? Not what they were last year, not a team that's going to win 4 games, but a team that maybe caught a Colorado team that had months to prepare for what they thought TCU was going to do to them, and they capitalized. Texas and A&M, and I mean, frankly, we'll get to Texas and A&M first. Looked the part, right? Heavily favored in both those games. Looked the part of the 2 flagship schools in the state. Took care of business. Nothing to really, in my opinion, worry about. You can probably say Texas' offense didn't look as clean as you wanted it to, but I think it's natural to look ahead to Alabama. So we'll see really this weekend what they're made of. Houston, SMU, both took care of business. Houston wasn't the prettiest game, right? Carter, you were there at that one.
Don't apologize for going 1-0, though.
I was about to say, don't apologize for going 1-0. Defense looked miles better than what they were last year against a UTSA team that had probably its worst game under Jeff Traylor since his first year, probably, with Frank Harris throwing 3 picks. So, there's the power poll. Go check that out. Again, Craven will be updating that every single week. He has little blurbs on why certain teams are there where they are. But let's get into this week. All right, because we got some – it was like a little appetizer last week, right? We have some heavy hitters this week. Mallory, let's get to our games of the week. What do we got first?
Let's start off with a heavy hitter. Texas playing at Alabama this Saturday, September 9th at 6 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN. What? Oh, my God. Alabama coming in as 7-point favorites. The over-under is at 54.5.
Carter just did a wardrobe change right here. He's got the Bijan Mustardson hat.
Got my Bijan Mustardson hat.
He was going to do this last week, and then he just never did.
I got carried away.
Put it on the ground and
He had the hat there the whole time. He just did not wear it. All right. Carter, you are the alum. You were going to Texas when they played with Alabama for 90% of the game, and then Bryce Young decided to be the best player on the field, and forever, I think, once again scarred Texas fans on behalf of Alabama.
Best college atmosphere game I've been to, though, in my life. That Texas Alabama game.
That there was something different about, like, maybe it was just the fact that it was Bama, obviously that helps, but there were a lot of people that were like, even when Texas was quote unquote back when they won the Sugar Bowl, all that stuff, that home game I heard felt different. Like in terms of like, this is something that we didn't think DKR was able of producing. And that's really interesting that you say that was the best atmosphere you've been to, because that's what I heard from a lot of people who were covering this team for a long time.
And I'm sure that atmosphere in Bryant-Denny Stadium is going to rival it.
Woo, buddy. I mean, look, Jalen Milroe versus Quinn Ewers. We talked about your story on TexasFootball.com right now. For those that don't know, the Jalen Milroe was initially committed in 2021, or the class of 2021, I should say, to Texas, to Tom Herman. They got the Quinn Ewers commitment. It kind of, for lack of a better phrase, irked him a little bit, right? He's like, oh, I was committed to you, now you go and get this other quarterback. Granted, Quinn Ewers is a generational talent at the time. Yep. He decommits. He goes to commit to Alabama, play under Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian obviously becomes the coach at Texas later, and now we're back at the full circle. So
it kind of gives you a headache just thinking about
how
they're intertwined so much.
So looking at this game, though, Mallory, what was the line again?
Shoot. I think it was 7.5.
7.5.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah,
correct. 7.
7, exactly.
Alabama favored by 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take Bama to cover that by not much. I'm gonna say maybe 10, because again, granted, I forgot who they played last week, but it doesn't matter because they were a Bama non-conference schedule typically, which is pretty Middle Tennessee. There you go.
Middle Tennessee. 56-7.
The fact that Jalen Milroe, I still think, looked as comfortable in the passing game as he did, without having to really stretch his arms that much or really, have to really stretch things, does give me a little bit of concern for Texas.
Here's the thing I'm really worried about is we have spent all offseason just assuming that the Alabama dynasty is over.
Yeah.
And they don't have a quarterback figured out. And I think Tyler Buckner, when he transferred in the summer, everyone's antenna went up and we're like, oh, crap. Alabama does not feel good about any quarterback they have on their roster.
Right.
And all the while, we're forgetting that Nick Saban hasn't missed out on the national championship game for 3 straight years since the college football playoff started.
Right.
So, meanwhile, while Alabama is on just stock downtrending watch, Texas is the team that everyone every year is calling it, they're back. And this is the year they have the best roster. And this is the year it feels like everyone around college football is saying Texas might go into Bryant-Denny Stadium and beat Alabama.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that Alabama is going to win by 2 to 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. So,
I think Alabama is going to smoke Texas.
Really?
I do.
You think?
And I've thought about this a lot, Ish,
Yeah.
because this pays. And I got my Bijan Mustardson hat, and I'm saying they're going to get smoked. And I know, like, I'm very conflicted here.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a year or two early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. The thing that does, I said there was nothing to concern me from the Rice game, and I'll revise that a little bit. A lot of people are starting to question the development of Quinn Ewers' deep ball because he still wasn't what we thought. Again, he could throw it in high school, and so he has the talent. He has the arm strength, but the arm accuracy does not seem to be there, and that's kind of that was what he did against Bama last year at times, right? Hitting Worthy, he connected. I know he missed one, but he connected on one to set them up for a touchdown. That really got things going early for Texas. That
throw to Worthy is the one deep ball I've pretty much seen.
That's a good point.
In the Quinn Ewers era.
That's a good point.
At Texas. And look, I think Quinn is a great quarterback.
Sure.
I do. I think he's uber talented, but it was disheartening in this Rice game to see. This whole offseason, we talked about Quinn's cut the mullet. He's lost 10 pounds. He stopped eating Chick-fil-A. He's like in a really good headspace, and it's looking way better.
Yeah.
And the footwork is just still sloppy. If you watch those throws on the deep balls that they're not hitting on, the footwork is –
it's a lot of arm.
It's a lot of arm, and the footwork isn't there. And last year, Quinn Ewers would overthrow every deep ball by about 10 yards. This year, he was underthrowing it. It's like he's overcorrecting almost.
Right.
And Texas will not reach their potential if they don't start hitting on this deep ball. And it's something along the lines of, if this keeps going on throughout the season, we have to question, Steve Sarkisian, you're the quarterback whisperer.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
We got to get this footwork fixed.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
I was about to say, I know a lot of recruiting guys, and Craven was one of them that was covering through his junior year at South Lake Carroll, and it was all, seeing the guy now is not the guy that you saw as a junior at South Lake Carroll, right? It was like you saw the arm talent, and you were like, okay, they just need to hone that and, put that through a filter, and like, boom, here you go. Here's your prototypical quarterback with an NFL arm, potentially, things like that. It just hasn't come along. And yeah, I don't know.
Which is not saying it won't.
No, exactly.
Along,
no, it's not saying it. Well, he's technically still a sophomore, right? In terms of like his actual age and where he's actually at. But you're playing in Bryant-Denny, right? And it's whether or not he's not the issue if things go wrong, right? I think we could blame more like the lack of development on his part. I think he's developed other parts of his game. I think last week he looked way more mobile than I think he's ever looked.
100%.
Right?
Yeah,
he had that part. He has slimmed down and
that's the part. Yeah, the weight loss. That's the part where it's like he looks faster.
Yes, 100%. Which could absolutely play into how they could potentially pull an upset. Because what's one thing Alabama's always had issues with, no matter who they've played, regardless of the rest of the talent, it's mobile quarterbacks, right? And I'm not saying Quinn Ewers is Johnny Manziel all of a sudden, but like they were not going to beat Alabama with him just dropping back. So that's my thing. I think Bama covers, but not by much. We'll see. 7.5 is a lot, or 7 is decent. So I'll give Texas some credit. I think still about 10 though is my mark.
I'm concerned about the offensive line too for Texas because
they did not look great last week either.
They didn't look great last weekend. Cole Hudson was held out because he was injured.
Yeah.
And then they're still flip-flopping around the line. Like DJ Campbell started the game, and then Neto Umazulu, Zena's brother, came in the second half, I believe. So they're still flip-flopping stuff around. Yeah. And if they put up that effort versus Rice that they're going to do against Bama, it's not going to look pretty.
Right. All right. So let's move on to our second game, but let's bring in a guest for these last two games. Got her, senior writer.
I have somebody on the phone here.
All right.
For this next game. This game is kind of important here. Texas State traveling to UTSA this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN+. UTSA coming in as 12.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 65.5. Craven, how are you doing?
I'm doing better than Ish's Bobcats will be doing Sunday morning.
Oh!
We have a little bit of trash talk
This is
here.
the first time we've actually been able to talk about this game in like an alumni versus alumni sense.
I know.
It's always been like, yeah, y'all beat us. You know, I could only talk about it in the past. And Craven was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Who cares? And now it's like, oh, they're actually going to play this weekend. I can finally do this. Oh, man. Craven, all right, so compare your sensibilities to where the UTSA fan base is, because I feel like you're a lot more weighted in terms of just your perspective on all of this. And I'm not even saying I haven't paid attention to UTSA Twitter, so I have no idea. Are they doomsaying? Are they worried? Are they confident? What's your sense compared to theirs right now?
I feel UTSA fans are always on this like seesaw of emotions because it's still so new to them.
Sure.
Like there hasn't been a ton of bad. The Coker era was new and everything was exciting, and you make it to a bowl game under Frank Wilson, and that's cool and that's exciting. And yeah, I mean, that tenure ended up kind of souring and they go in a new direction. But then Jeff Traylor comes in and wins a couple conference championship games and has three straight winning seasons, and they're moving up to the American. And then you go on the road and all this excitement, you lose to Houston. And it's like, oh man, we stink. And what's going to happen? We don't, and so, for me, it just feels like a roller coaster all the time for UTSA. But I think a lot of that just is the newness, and they haven't had like a stretch of bad yet to really like jade them and make them a cynical sports fan like myself.
Right. Well, on the flip side, let's check in on Bobcat Nation. What's going on? What's going on with y'all?
According to Twitter, we're in the national title. I don't know what's happening right now. But no, I'll say this. Like, it's been so long. I think this is what I talked about on the post-game show or the recap episode. It's been so long since they've been genuinely optimistic, right? There's natural optimism for the season starting. You buy into the offseason hype. But there was a skepticism heading into the Baylor game. It was like, okay, we've heard about exciting offense, exciting defense, all this stuff. And then seeing it happen in the way that it happened, controlling the game, that was something they haven't seen. And so for those of you that don't know, Javi Cardenas over at birdsup.com, a site that Craven helped founded, he's been keeping track of the ticket distribution, right? And they've opened up the third level. And that only happens when you crack 36,000, right? And so it's looking like, based on the track record, it's looking like they're going to pass last year's Houston game, which is about 36, I think. It's going to approach 40. I'm not saying they're going to cross 40. It's going to approach 40. We might end up 38, 39 around there, which will be, I believe, top 4. I can't remember. All attendance all time. Craven can correct me on that. But that's because UTSA fans were always going to show up for the home opener. But that's because now that Texas State fans are now motivated to go show out for the visitor side. UTSA fans have had great attendance and under the Jeff Traylor era, but even before that, just in general. But Texas State fans, I was really curious to see what the attendance was going to be like if they weren't excited for this game, right? We're just going to go. We're just going to lose. Another loss to UTSA. Now there's excitement. And now based on not only is there excitement, there's like belief that they can win. Like that's huge. So, Craven, I remember in the offseason you said, this is a rivalry more on Texas State side, which is true, right? I do want to say like that is a true statement that you said. UTSA has moved on to worrying about conference titles versus UNT, things like that, more just conference affiliated rivalries. To me, this weekend, barring a UTSA blowout, I think could reignite that what this rivalry should be, and kind of, in my opinion, what we should be looking for more in college football, which is these non-conference kind of rivalries that are more regional affiliated.
Yeah, I mean, Texas State just needs to hold up their end of the bargain.
Yep.
And if GJ Kinney and this group can do that, like you said, a close game, or if they find a way to win it, then all of a sudden that wakes up UTSA, and now that becomes a real rivalry. But I don't know if it can be won until like the other team wins.
Sure. No, that's right.
And as soon as Texas State does that, then like guys like me who went to school, back in the day when Texas State was our main rival in every other sport that we had, because we didn't have football yet. Now all of a sudden that becomes like a rivalry. And my friends who went to Texas State, like we can really trash talk now and stuff because they have a chance on the football field. And so I think it's got a chance to be one of those really cool G5, for lack of a better word. We need to figure out a new word structure.
I know, right? The Power 5, the G5.
But it can become a really cool G5 rivalry that's not, interconference. That would be a lot of fun. And Texas State is starting to hold up their end by putting together a good football team, by hiring a really good coach. And then for me, most importantly, putting in the energy and the backing and the admin to make this thing come to truth.
Craven, as on the UTSA side, how concerned are you with Frank Harris at quarterback right now? Because, look, you stated it in your piece. He didn't throw for 7 months. Okay, he had 4 surgeries on the same knee, and obviously he was going to be very rusty in this Houston game, especially without JT Clark, one of his top receivers. And really, in my opinion, when I watched the game, it was that third quarter with the 3 interceptions was the only quarter it kind of went off the rails. I thought he was pretty nails the rest of the game. But, like, what do you think is your concern level for the UTSA passing game and maybe what UTSA fans are feeling right now?
I mean, my concern level is at like a -4.
Okay.
I mean, y'all can bet against Frank Harris if you want to.
Sure.
But I'm going to go on the last 2.5, 3 years of him. Every time he's counted out, he comes out and he does something spectacular. I mean, that's a Big 12 defense. Like that's a really good defense that Houston has. That's going to be the strength of their football team. They had all off season to game plan for that. They had played against them the year before. As you mentioned, Frank didn't throw the ball for 7 months, had 4 knee surgeries in his left knee, and was missing the two of his best wide receivers from the year before, Zagari Franklin through the transfer portal and Jake Clark being injured. I think after that performance, and especially after the 3 interceptions in the third quarter, you're going to see a pretty motivated and good Frank Harris. And Jeff Traylor's offenses dating back for 30 years have been scoring a lot of points. I imagine they figured it out. I think an undersold part of that game was also the first game for the new offensive coordinator, and so that'll help as well to kind of get that under their belt. So I mean, I think you're going to get as good of a version as UTSA is in 2023 on Saturday, I would imagine.
Yeah. Lastly, on this game, I think the big matchup's going to be, I mean, obviously Frank Harris is going to be involved, but it will be how Pat Key schemes against that offense, because obviously I think Jeff Traylor said during the week, earlier in the week, he mentioned JT Clark. He held him out. JT Clark wanted to play. Clark said he was good to play, but Traylor kind of had a gut feeling saying, like, you're not, this isn't it, which I think was a smart call. If you don't think a player's right, you don't want to put that on your conscience. So, regardless of his status, whether or not they have him or Tech State can key in on Cephas or Barnes in the run game or whatever, I think Pat Key, he was so aggressive against Baylor because I think he knew he can kind of run at Blake Shapen a little bit in that offensive line. It's not going to be, sure, he's you can say whatever about his knee. I think his knee looks fine to me in terms of durability right now. You can't do the same and expect the same results against a Frank Harris, right? And what happens when you send the blitz, Frank Harris steps out, all of a sudden that's a 12-yard gain on a 3rd and 10. I'm curious about how do they come out with the same aggressive game plan versus a different offense, a different QB, or do they just say, this is what won us last week, we're gonna make him beat us basically with his legs?
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas State had the power of information on Saturday against Baylor. So many new players, a whole new coaching staff, the first time at FBS, a quarterback from Auburn that we all kind of thought stunk a little when he was out there in the SEC, right? Like, what is that offense? How much are you going to see Malik Hornsby? I wonder how much time Baylor spent on that package as well. There was just so many unknowns. I think we saw it in the Colorado TCU game. We saw it in Texas State. Baylor as well, where it's hard to game plan for a team that you just have no idea what they're going to look like. UTSA has a better idea, one, because they have film now. They have like 4 quarters of film. But 2, because Jeff Traylor is like kind of G.J. Kinney's mentor, at least one of them. So I'm sure they're pretty familiar with how they do football. So for me, this is going to be less about scheme and more about players. And right now, UTSA still has the best players. Now, I mean, it's football, so anything can happen on Saturday. But I imagine that overall talent, especially offensive line, defense line, just depth, kind of helps UTSA as that first game excitement kind of goes away, right? Like week 1 can be a little bit of an aberration. Maybe UTSA played worse than they normally do, and they regressed to the mean, or they raised to the mean. Where Texas State, if that's Texas State every week, then okay, I was wrong about the podcast. I would imagine there's a little bit of regression to the mean in week 2, just because there has to be because of how well they played.
Right.
Y'all made a bet yet?
I have no idea. We did one for FC Dallas, Austin FC. I don't know. We'll think about something.
Yeah, you should.
I don't know if I can get Craven to wear maroon. Put maroon.
Who won that one?
Anyway, which is why I'm hesitant to do another bet. We'll discuss something.
Yes. Let's move on to our last top matchup of the week. Texas Tech hosting Oregon this Saturday at 6 p.m. at Jones AT&T Stadium or AT&T Jones Stadium. I don't know if this is the correct term. You can watch it on Fox. Oregon coming in as 6.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 67. Craven, you're actually going to be at this game. How are you feeling about it?
I don't know.
Correct.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Tech kind of jumped out to that 17-0 lead in the first quarter. I kind of changed the channel to watch Sam Houston and UTEP, some of the other games going on. I look back and I'm like, man, they hadn't scored since, right? And so I think the defense played pretty well. I mean, the defense played well enough to win that football game. The special teams had a couple errors that cost them that game, which could be big in a close game against Oregon. Tech under Joey McGuire has struggled on the road. Tech at home has played really well, sans that Baylor game last year. Yeah. And so I think we see a better version of Texas Tech. You're kind of like what we were talking about with UTSA, right? Like losing week one is going to motivate you. You're going to get that team's best shot, and I think that helps them a lot. But anybody who's ever listened to this show knows how I feel about Will Stein, the former UTSA offensive coordinator. He's now at Oregon. They scored like 1,000 points, I think, in week one. I don't know if they've stopped scoring yet. And so that one's going to be a really tough one for Tim DeRuyter. There's a lot of weird ties. You know, Tyler Shuck used to be at Oregon. Tim DeRuyter used to be at Oregon. Marcel Yates used to be at Oregon. So it's going to be an interesting game, and night games at Jones are always a lot of fun. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that one, I mean, they put an 81 bomb on Portland
Started
State.
the Bo Nix Heisman campaign.
Yeah, they're trying. They got the billboards up in Dallas for all
and New York.
And New York. But, yeah, I do think, like, for me, the thing I'm curious about, and I'm wondering if this is something we maybe see more this year, it was a wrinkle of a concern after last week, but it was Tech. You mentioned it. Tech opened up 17-0, and then they could not. I don't know if it was they just struggled against Wyoming or they could not do it. The offensive line wasn't as good. They couldn't play the controlling style that I think they wanted to kind of hold on the lead and sit on it.
Well, Tyler Shuck started pressing after the first two drives.
He did start pressing.
He looked really good on the first two. He had two awesome touchdowns with great ball placement, and then it's almost like he wanted to go for the kill shot,
right?
And he's throwing it across the field that could have been a pick six against an Oregon team.
And I also think it didn't help that they couldn't run the ball either.
No.
Like it was one of their worst.
98 rushing yards, 2.8 yards a carry against Wyoming.
And so I think if you have a lead, and let's say, Tyler, you see your quarterback pressing, you then turn to run the ball, and it's like, all right, let's calm it down a little bit, let's hand it off. And they were not getting anywhere. So again, that's why it's a wrinkle of a concern, because I think that they will be able to run the ball with Taj Brooks. Tyler Shuck got involved in the running game late, kind of more of a necessity. But I do wonder, I don't know if it'll get fixed against Oregon per se, but I do wonder if, like you mentioned, playing at home, Shuck has some motivation there, because I don't want to say he was chased out of Oregon, but it was basically like, you're not our type of quarterback anymore when that coaching, when he had to leave. So I'm not concerned. I am surprised the line's still about 6, though. I thought it would be a little bit more after last week. But I think that's probably them assuming Tech's better than that, and then playing at home, and then and then Oregon, obviously it was a lot of style points versus Portland State. So I think that's probably where that number came from.
Here's what I'm concerned about is Texas Tech missed about 5 tackles on the Wyoming quarterback in the backfield.
I thought you were going to say field goals, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that goes without saying. It's field goals I'm a little concerned about. But the Texas Tech defense was getting home to Wyoming quarterback, and they just could not bring him down to the backfield, and he was scrambling for first downs. Yeah. The other thing is they were getting destroyed by the tight ends across the middle of the field. Sure. And I feel like that's something where Bo Nix is a better quarterback than the Wyoming quarterback, and he's also plenty mobile. Craven, what's your concern level with the defense?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the defense played well enough to win. I mean, they didn't play perfect, obviously, and there's some holes there at safety and at linebacker, and they don't have Tyree Wilson anymore, so they're still trying to figure out who is going to become that lead blitzer. But I mean, you pitch a shutout for a decent part of that first half, and only allow points in the 20s. Like at Texas Tech, that should win, on the road. So I think that there was also a delay, and there's that's 7,200 feet in the air. We never talk about Wyoming the same way as we talk about like Colorado, but it's higher elevation in Wyoming than it is anywhere else in college football. So I think that was part of it down the stretch as well. But another interesting part of this game to me that I don't even know if it's a big deal or not, but I find it interesting, is they're doing a lot of construction at Jones, and the visitors they're not gonna have a real locker room. And so like how that comes into play and what that's about, and just what the atmosphere there is going to be interesting as well. That's a hard place to play at night. It really is a hard place to play at night. I think Texas Tech's going to give their best effort. They're going to play better than they did against Wyoming. I'm just not sure that's enough to beat this Oregon team.
Yeah, I believe this has been sold out for roughly 2 months now. It's sold out at the beginning of August, so enthusiasm's not going to be down, right?
Craven, this might be the best atmosphere you go to this season. It might be in the running.
It'll probably be number 2. Alabama at A&M will be number 1 with the board.
That's gonna be
fair.
That's gonna be an interesting one. Yeah, that'll be a good one. Yeah. All right. Is that I'm trying to think of anything else that I had to talk about this one because this one's. I'm gonna keep my TV tuned to this one. I would have anyway. It's a night game in Lubbock, but with everything at stake, Oregon now obviously firmly trying to put themselves in the playoff hunt, trying to establish Bo Nix as a Heisman winner. This one has so much going into it.
I'm going to take Texas Tech to cover in this one. I think the Wyoming game was a weird game. Like Craven, you mentioned the elevation, the lightning delay. Wyoming had just some freak plays where they got big-time first downs in key situations. And I think this Texas Tech team would have probably lost that game by more last year, honestly. I think Texas Tech is going to be fine against Oregon.
I'm gonna go Oregon to cover slightly. I'm gonna go a touchdown, maybe a little bit more, maybe like 9 or something. But yeah, I do think this will be a much better showing for Texas Tech.
I'll take Tech to cover just because I'm going to be there.
there you go.
You can't
throw something at me.
Like they're going to get wrecked.
All right, buddy. Safe drives up there, man.
All right, I'm flying, but I'll see y'all.
Okay.
Bye, Craven.
All right. So, yeah, keep track of TexasFootball.com. He'll have some thoughts from that game. Carter, where are you at this weekend?
I am going to Waco for Baylor, Utah.
Oh,
what a great segue into our next game.
You see what I did there?
Well,
So
yeah,
unintentional.
I see
But anyway,
what
you see what I did there?
Let's get into the wide zone. Baylor hosting Utah this Saturday.
What another the wide zone with Baylor?
Correct.
The wide zone offense. Look at that. These segues
Wow,
on
you're
segues.
getting good at this thing.
I am getting great.
Kind of good at this thing. You can watch it at 11 a.m. on ESPN. Utah coming in as 7.5-point favorites. The over/under set at 47.5. Is that a tiny spread?
I mean, they're trying. I mean, I think that's more of.
I am concerned that Utah is going to come on there and just destroy Utah.
I am very concerned. You mean destroy Baylor?
Baylor,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's a game of backup quarterbacks, right? We don't know if Cam Rising is playing.
That's
to
true.
be fair, that did not matter last week.
No, I was going to say.
They came out throwing
Utah.
with what's his face against Florida. Like the first
Barnes.
play the first play
Utah
from scrimmage was a
so
play action
good.
deep ball for a touchdodown. Yeah, I'm concerned. I'm very.
Here's
concerned.
my Dave Aranda take, because I know the streets are hot right now
Streets
with
are very hot.
getting their Dave Aranda takes off. Yeah. I think he is the most interesting coach in college football, perhaps. Mm-hmm. I think he is a really great guy. I would love if he was my father or my grandfather, and I'd love to sit on his knee and have him tell me stories.
About the good old days.
About the good old days.
I just don't know if he can fire up a football team. He is so stoic.
Yeah.
He is so measured. He's so reasoned. And Baylor actually sleptwalked versus Texas State. I mean, they got dominated on the line of scrimmage. You got Blake Shapen out there limping around, rolling out to his pocket, and it's like he's like Mike Winchell in Friday Night Lights versus Dallas Carter against Texas State. And
blood on his jersey.
Blood on his jersey,
floor.
crawling to the end zone. And Dave Aranda turns to him and he's like, I can't put you back in because we can't protect you.
Yeah.
Literally what he said in that press conference. That's a really bad sign.
It was rough. Bryson Barnes is the Utah backup quarterback name, by the way. He threw for only 150, but again, it's Utah, so that's fine. They're okay running the ball as well. I am very worried about this game because, like you mentioned, not only that it's a backup quarterback, right? Sawyer Robertson, four-star recruit, like he was brought in to challenge Blake Shapen, right?
Yeah.
So like he's not a nobody. Even RJ Martinez, the third string, he's one of the better players in FCS last year. But that's not even my concern. It's the offensive line. They could not protect Blake Shapen against a Texas State team that was, again, I love my alma mater. I would take Utah 9-10 times out of 10, their defense and what Kyle Whittingham's done there over what the Bobcats did last week. That's why I'm concerned. It's like if you couldn't block those guys, I don't know how you handle Utah's smash mouth I don't even want to say offense, smash mouth on both sides of the ball
Yep.
style of play. This one could get ugly. I'm taking Utah kind of big. The thing that did concern me was it wasn't even Shapen. I think Shapen is like 5th or 6th on things wrong with Baylor last week.
He was great last week.
I thought he was fine. He couldn't stand up. They couldn't keep him upright.
They were talking about what a gutsy performance, like inspiring performance Blake Shapen had out there.
They couldn't run the ball, and the receivers, I thought, could not get open. Right? That was my thing. They couldn't. So the reason why he was getting hit a lot of times was because guys weren't open on their first read, and so he was having just to stand in the pocket, run around, and then by that time, if you're blitzing, you're going to get home. So yeah, if they can't run the ball, they're going to lose. That's just how this game. If they can't use Richard Reese, they're going to lose. So I'm very concerned. Yes.
I mean, Travis Roeder on Twitter, he's a writer for Sikkim365. He does that thing where he posts like the GIFs of like plays and does them in a thread. And I was watching that over the weekend, and he's just doing multiple plays where it's just like the line of scrimmage. If Texas State is on offense, their line of scrimmage is 3 yards down the field against Baylor's defensive line.
Right.
And then you also take into account that Devin Lemire, who I think is one of their best defensive players, is out for 2 to 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So now your best player from offense and your best player from defense in that Texas State game are now out.
Yeah.
I'm taking Utah, I think, by 2 touchdowns in this one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, let's move on. Texas playing at Miami this Saturday at 2:30 p.m.
Texas A&M.
Wow, Texas
Texas
got a
A&M.
hell of a slate.
They're running the doubleheader here.
Yeah.
I'm
The
sorry.
Bishop Sycamore.
Bishop Sycamore reference. Sorry. Go ahead, Mallory.
I'm sorry. Texas A&M playing at Miami this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. You can watch it on ABC. Texas A&M coming in as 4.5-point favorites. The over/under set at 51. Ooh, Aggies, man.
What did Miami do week 1?
I mean, I don't know. They beat Miami, Ohio. They beat the other Miami. Miami,
I forgot.
There's two
the
Miamis.
Battle of the
That's
Ohio's.
great.
Good thing
Yeah.
we got that
That's so
situated.
good.
Yeah. Good thing we finally realized which one's better. Golly, I mean, this is the game where we figure out if this is real, right? Like, you can flex against New Mexico all you want. That's great. I'm happy they did because they don't typically do that. In general, they don't really flex on offense.
Yeah, I lost a Dr. Pepper bet to Adam on that one.
Oh, you know?
I said that.
That's fair. I mean, I would have too. I never thought they would score 52 points. They don't score 52 points against anybody. And yeah.
So I'm not betting on the Aggies this week. I think they're gonna beat Miami.
I think so too. There's been a lot. I don't want to say a lot of hype. There's been a lot of optimism about Miami for some reason for me. They weren't fun last year. Like, they weren't fun to watch. Like, this game was. I mean, Craven. You'll hear Craven complain to this day that he had to watch this game last year.
It was
right?
17-14.
17-9.
Last
year.
That
It was
sucks.
awful. It was one of the most unwatchable games last year, and A&M still won because it didn't matter because Miami. I don't know. Is Tyler Van Dyke all of a sudden good? Like, I don't like. He's fine, but like, is he? I didn't think he was somebody that like A&M should have to worry about in terms of beating them, right? Mario Cristobal, I think we're going to have some narratives about whether or not he can really coach an offense because we're seeing what Justin Herbert's doing in the NFL. He wasn't doing that at Oregon. Tyler Shuck, I think, is a good quarterback. He couldn't do much at Oregon under. We're seeing, I don't know. I think if Mario Cristobal has one Achilles heel, it's that I think his offensive lines are too good for what the offense actually does. And I don't think that they're going to be able to hold up this week.
My only concern is the A&M offense looked legit versus that team they played in week 1. And then now in a bigger marquee game, Jimbo Fisher be like, pass the sticks. Like, grab the Xbox controller and like his time to do it. It takes it away from Bobby Petrino.
I mean, let's put it this way. I'm taking A&M. That would not shock me, though, if he's like, you showed what you can do, but the big boys are here. Let me. Yeah. That was cool versus New Mexico.
It's easy to cede control against New Mexico, but what about when you're in Miami?
That's a good point, because we did talk about Dabo Swinney saying, yeah, Garrett Riley's running my offense. And it was like, oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. All right, Mallory.
All right, let's get into – okay, how about this? UTEP playing at Northwestern this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. You can watch it on Big Ten Network. UTEP coming in as 1.5-point favorites.
That is nuts.
The over/under set at 38.5.
That is nuts.
Can I get a pick 'em?
Is it pick 'em?
Picks up.
Picks up. There you go. It is
Picks
picks up.
up.
It's picks up.
I love this.
38.5 over under.
That is disgusting.
Whoa.
That is
awful,
disgusting work.
But I love this.
Yeah. Northwestern stinks.
Northwestern does.
They are really bad.
What was their first game?
They lost to Rutgers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about
that.
They got smash-mouthed by Rutgers.
Schmacked. Say schmacked by Rutgers. Northwestern's not good, obviously, with everything that went down in the offseason. They really have nothing to play for. Like, they're just like, I don't know. They look like a team that really just kind of are just trying to get this season.
Yeah, this is a get-right game for UTEP. This is one.
This is a get-right game for UTEP.
This is the one you go out and smack them.
Yeah, yep. you don't want to look ahead.
No.
Look ahead to Conference USA.
No,
Your UTEP.
not at
and
all.
also, please win this game.
Actually, they got Arizona.
I do not want to see Northwestern win this game and do the nobody believed in us, like everything we've been through narrative. Like, I do not give Northwestern this. UTEP.
I know.
I don't want to see the justice for Northwestern, like, we fought through narrative.
The benefit of coming off of the Incarnate Word game is that they were able to run the ball better than they've ever run the ball. Right? I think Deion Hankins had 174 on the ground. Awesome.
Yeah,
they've been trying to establish
over
that
300 yards.
Right, yeah, over 300 yards on the ground, 6.6 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Again, you can say UIW all you want. I've seen this team try to run against everybody and not be able to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And so the fact they were able to get multiple guys over 5 yards a carry, I think I'm going to put that as a little bit of a kernel of hope because I think Carter said the worst scenario is like Northwestern wins, all of a sudden us against the world, even though it's about hazing and abuse. Like, it's not nothing to be like
y'all against y'all.
Proud about. Yeah. I'm just trying to think, how many yards did Rutgers run for? They didn't run for a lot. Still, they threw the ball. I mean, I don't even know how Rutgers won this game. Looking at this box score, if I'm being honest, neither team played great. But regardless, UTEP, get it done, please. And then they get Arizona next week, which is going to be a little challenge. But
do they? Well, they probably go to Arizona.
It's at Arizona. Yeah, they can't bring. They're not bringing to Arizona to UTEP just yet.
Just yet. Just wait.
Give them a couple years.
Just wait till they beat Northwestern and Arizona. And
there we go. People will be calling to play in the Sun Bowl.
Correct. All right, moving on. SMU playing at Oklahoma this Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN+. OU, they're 15.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 68.5. Did y'all see what Oklahoma did last weekend?
Yeah. They made Butch Jones cry.
Correct. It was a murdering.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, they literally made Butch Jones, the Arkansas State head coach, cry because they were beating him that bad.
His player had to give him a hug.
He had to give him a literal hug because it was that bad. 73-0 was that game.
Yeah. Arkansas State's bad.
Arkansas State's really they might be bottom 3 in the country.
Yes.
I can't say worse because I don't know. We'll see. This game is fun.
Yes.
I really do not know what to think in this one. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take SMU to cover this because I think that's a lot of points for Oklahoma. An Oklahoma team that, by the way, a lot of their hype is just about how bad their schedule is, right?
Yep.
It's not necessarily that we're thinking Oklahoma's going to be back to what they were on Lincoln Riley or Bob Stoops. It's just that they don't play anybody hard in conference, so people assume they have to win. Mm-hmm. With that being said, I saw SMU dominate La Tech last week in a way that SMU has not dominated a game wire to wire on both sides of the ball in a while. So I'm going to say, I don't know if they win. Playing in Norman's hard. Oklahoma has a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. I'm going to say they cover just because of that, because it's particularly that defense. We've seen Dylan Gabriel get uncomfortable at times, right? We've seen Oklahoma's offense not look great. Jeff Lebby's not exactly I don't think he's out of the woodwork as a questionable play caller based on some things last year. We'll see. I'm taking them to cover. I think Oklahoma wins, but a lot of that hype is pretty misplaced for this spread to be this high, in my opinion.
I think OU is a much improved team from last year. I think they will be a lot better, but I do think SMU is going to cover this one. Just because I think that Preston Stone at quarterback, and like you said, the defense is much improved, and yes, they're going to help keep SMU in this game, but I think SMU is kind of a different caliber team with Preston Stone at the helm.
Sure,
I just really think they are. I don't think SMU is probably going to win, but it's going to get weird. I think
it's going to get very weird. The fact that I think I mentioned this a couple times already. Rhett Lashley saying that I wanted to be boring against Louisiana Tech. I'm curious what he has for Oklahoma because I think he knew that I need to keep some things off tape again when we go to Norman because I I really think he thinks that they have a shot at going in and pulling something off here. And I just don't think he wanted to put too much on tape to give them when they go to Norman. So
I'm gonna have to tell Clayton we both picked him to cover. He was telling me today, he's like, everyone's saying that SMU's gonna lose 52-17. Like, what do you think, Connor? I was like, no, not at all.
That's not how. I will say that's.
No.
I was about to say that's a very specific score, but but that's
I don't know
not.
who's sorry. There's probably one person.
I was about to say
Everyone
one guy
is
threw
saying-
that number out. But no, I'm gonna say SMU covers, and I think a lot of people are gonna be peeking over at SMU, being like, "Oh, is there something happening this season?"
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's go to Florida. North Texas.
Let's go to Florida. Oh, for that. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I was like, I'll go to Florida. Let's go.
Ah, yeah, correct. I'll just go.
I was about to say, just in general, yeah.
Just in general. North Texas playing Florida International this Saturday at 5:30 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. UNT coming in as 12.5-point favorites. The over/under set at 52.
Yeah.
Man, FIU is talking about bottom 3 teams. FIU is probably the worst team in the FBS.
Yeah,
so North Texas, go out there and win this, please, by a lot.
To pulverize them this week.
Yes.
So they
Talk about a
beat
get-right spot.
They beat Maine 14-12 last week.
Maine, I know.
Maine. Do you know they play football in Maine?
And then they lost to La Tech.
Then they lost to La Tech, which, I mean, La Tech might be better than they were last year, but they weren't very good last year.
Yeah.
And I believe they're on their backup quarterback as well, because I think, because they started, oh my God, the Duncanville quarterback against La Tech, Grayson James. They started Grayson James against La Tech. He did not play against Maine, so I'm presuming he's hurt because he started all last year. North Tech, I will say this. I think I'm 70% sure we'll see Chandler Rogers earlier. Stone Earl may still start.
Really?
I think
they didn't put the or on the depth chart. It's just Stone Earl.
Is it just Stone Earl?
Yeah.
I think he will start. Don't get me wrong. I think he will start again.
We'll just see him earlier than
I think
beginning of the fourth quarter.
I was about to say he came in the fourth
mid-third.
quarter. I think. I mean, again, he might not need to come in. Stone Earl might play great against a bad FIU team, and they just keep him in. But I think if we do see him, I think it'll be like second quarter.
I'm not even that concerned about the offense, though.
I'm not. No, the defense was atrocious.
Texas,
Defense was atrocious. They don't. I don't think they have the personnel to run that off defense yet.
I don't think they do either. I think it's going to take a year or so to build that. I mean, Jamori Macklin, the wide receiver, is awesome.
He looked good. If there was one shining moment in that game, it was
I told
him.
Mallory the one time Stone Earl looked great was when he was throwing to Jamori Macklin.
Yeah. But, I mean, the Cal running backs, it was like they were covered in butter like when they were walking around. And, I think Eric Morris and Johnny Hodges are battling out for, like, toughest press conference.
Johnny Hodges, I know.
The week, like, saddest press conference, because Eric Morris is just, like, he's so even-keeled, and he's always has the same tone of voice, but he was like, it was atrocious.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone's bought in right now. Like, he was spitting.
He was very much popping off in that press conference in a way that you don't see from, like you mentioned, we don't see from him. Just like Johnny Hodges was like basically doing the same thing.
We're the
TCU.
laughing stock of college football right now. It's like, dude, Johnny, relax.
Right,
Man. It's okay.
It's okay, brother. So, yeah, I'll take North Texas because they better. Let's just put it that way.
Correct. All right, moving right along to Houston. Houston traveling to play Rice at home this Saturday at 6 p.m. You can watch it on NFL Network, I guess. Woo. Houston coming in as 10-point favorites. The over/under set at 52.5.
Here's what worries me about Rice.
Yeah.
Is watching that Texas game is not like you don't take that much away from it.
Right.
But I don't know who the other receiver is other than Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah.
On this
and
Rice team.
we talked about that, like in our preview game or preview. Last week or something like that. Yeah.
Yep, we did.
Like, he really has Luke McCaffrey to throw to. None of the wide receivers get any separation whatsoever. And I think JT Daniels is good, and he likes this offense a lot, but you need playmakers on the outside. Houston, the one thing that worries me about them is they would have gotten 3 points off those 3 Frank Harris interceptions because – and 2 of those set them up in the red zone. They went for it on 4th down once, didn't get it. The next time they went for a field goal on 4th down, and then it was a legal procedure, and then that's when they got their first touchdown. So Frank Harris, through 3 interceptions, probably had a game he would want to have back, and they still almost won that game.
I was about to say those are my 2 concerns in this one. Is I think Rice's options outside of, because they do have the quarterback, and they've always had the receivers and no quarterback. and now it's the opposite, right? They have the quarterback, and they might not have the depth of wide receiver. But it's also the fact that I think I'm a little concerned that Houston's offense might be mid. Because I think that they just kind of have to work with what they have with Donovan Smith. Because I don't think Lucas Coley's coming in to save that, right? I think it's Donovan Smith, and that might just be an offense you just have to roll with Donovan Smith, right? I think it's going to have to be it's not going to be nearly as explosive as it has been the past couple of years. Obviously, you lose Tank Dell at wide receiver, but I think they have depth there now. I think guys like Golden and Manjack are great.
Manjack is awesome.
Yeah,
he never gets tackled by the first guy.
No,
ever.
they're great. I think the problem is Donovan Smith consistently getting those guys the ball and making the right decision. I think that's the issue, and I'm wondering if Daniel Holgorsen maybe, I don't want to say he's concerned about that necessarily, but I am curious about that part of it. For Rice, we'll see what JT Daniels looks like against not Texas, right? But I do think he's still going against a defense that's pretty damn good based off last week.
I think Donovan Smith will be good in this Rice game.
Okay.
He missed a couple throws in his first 2 series. He said the jitters were kind of getting to him, and obviously, right, you're going to be nervous because it's like
sold out stadium, or almost sold out stadium.
Almost sold out stadium. His first game at Houston, their first game in the Big 12, and he was kind of staring down his reads a little bit and missing some open crossers. But I think he settled in better throughout the game, and Dana Holgorsen said it was a little spotty, but the most important thing is you won the game.
Yep.
And it wasn't pretty, and Dave Aranda talked about in his press conference, what I thought was very true, is that in week 1, more often than not, you lose the game the other team doesn't win. You make the mistakes.
Sure.
Okay, and Houston did a good job of winning a game ugly. I think that gives him confidence, and I think Donovan Smith will be better this week against Rice.
Yeah, I'm taking Houston too. I didn't really have a doubt about that at all. All right, moving right along. Sam Houston hosting Air Force this Saturday at 7 p.m. You can watch it on CBSSN. Air Force coming in as 14-point favorites. The over-under is very tiny, 37.5.
Oh, that's a good old triple option, baby.
Correct.
I need to watch.
Let's
I
go.
need to watch this.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because, yes, it's strength versus strength.
Yes.
Right? This triple option offense against a pretty damn good Sam Houston defense that went into Provo and shut down a pretty good BYU offense. I'm still going Air Force, though, because that offense might be butt for Sam Houston.
Yeah.
They look really bad.
I didn't watch any of this game, but this is my one total blind spot.
Yeah.
What happened?
It was Sam Houston playing, I don't want to say lights out, but they played really, really well on defensively. And they couldn't I mean, people are going to point at Keegan Shoemaker. I don't think it was his fault. They could not run the ball at all. And so they provided no other option but for Keegan Shoemaker to stand back there with not much time either. And BYU's Kalani Sitake has those guys playing great defense. He's kind of like a mini version of Kyle Whittingham, in my opinion. And so, yeah, he just it was one of those things where it's like it's 7-0 maybe, and then you see the offense, you're like, they're not doing anything with this. Then it got to 14-0. You're like, this game's over. So. Yeah. I think the over-under is awesome in this game because, I think honestly I'll probably take the under. I'm probably hammering the under.
Just sitting on pins and needles the whole game at 10-10.
right. Somebody. No. But I think Sam Houston's defense will be really good this season, probably the best in Conference USA. Their offense, I don't even think Grant Gunnell comes in and fixes this, right? He didn't play at all last week. I just think this might be a swallow it and figure it out next year type of offense.
I think we can make that determination after Air Force game.
Oh, 100%.
Because BYU is like, okay, so your first game up from the FCS, right?
Sure,
BYU, Power 5 team,
Yeah.
or Power 3 or 2 or 4 or whatever. So, yeah, okay, let's chuck that one out, burn the tape, do whatever. Let's see versus Air Force what it is.
Exactly.
Speaking of that, before we move on to the game, I think did y'all see the stat about the Pac-12 and how well they did this during week
Yeah, they're
one?
awesome.
I think they're
so good.
I don't think that every single team that was not playing against a Pac-12 team, I think won.
That's awesome.
So, and won very well.
Yeah,
So,
Oregon State might go on just to win it and just never show up again to play football. It's like,
No.
you know what, we're good. We're just going to take this and go home.
No.
I know we've talked about realignment so much, but it just is insane to me that the Pac-12 couldn't get any TV deal, but every team from the Pac-12 got in on a TV deal at another conference. Like, what was...
Yes.
You had them all there,
I know.
and they're good.
But then Larry Scott was like, actually, what if we made our own network that nobody wants?
Yeah.
That nobody wants to carry.
That's funny. All right, let's close it out here. TCU hosting Nicholls State this Saturday at 7 p.m. You can watch it on Big 12 Network or ESPN Plus. There's no line or anything because Nicholls State is FCS.
Yep.
I believe.
Yep.
So, all right, TCU. Just don't be fancy.
Get right.
It's a get right game. Just do what you need to do to win.
Yeah. This is the biggest get right games in the history of get right games,
Yes.
I think, because off of last week, all of the confidence is low, right? Go give Johnny Hodges a hug, right? Tell him it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then have Chandler Morris go out here and just light this team up.
Yes.
You need confidence everywhere across the board right
The
now.
thing about Nicholls State defense is they run the I don't know anything about Nicholls
I was about
State.
to say, we better get into some scheme here.
Okay, no. So TCU. Okay. I'm a Chandler Morris defender right now.
Go ahead.
I will stand on my chair for Chandler Morris and say, people were talking about, first game without Max Duggan and trying to put it on Chandler Morris.
Yeah.
There was one throw he made that I would have liked to see him not make. It's the first pick.
Mm-hmm.
The Travis Hunter one, you got to tip your hat to Travis Hunter. That was nuts. Okay,
unbelievable playmaker.
I don't know. Every quarterback would throw that ball 100 times out of 100.
Probably, yeah.
Also, I don't think Kendall Briles, people were talking about how bad the play calling was. I don't think it was terrible. I think the offense did good and put up enough points. The only thing with Kendall Briles I saw is sometimes it looked like he was trying to play Colorado at their strength. Like he was trying to play 7-on-7. Mm-hmm. And it felt like with Amani Bailey and Trey Sanders, you can get 3 yards, 4 yards, 70.
Yeah.
And it was it wasn't sexy enough for him. Like he had to throw the ball. He had to fade up Travis Hunter twice in a row in the red zone because that's what they needed to do. And that was the only part I was I think he's overthinking this too much.
Yeah.
Other than that, I thought the play calling was fine. I think TCU's going to be good this year. I
still think they're going to be a bowl team. Not even. I think 7-8 is their.
I think they're going to be 8-5 or. Yeah, I think 8 wins actually.
That's fair.
So I think they're going to be good this year.
I think they'll be fine. And I think the difference is we'll look at Colorado maybe as a bowl team now. In my opinion. So I agree. I think this is a game where you let Chandler Morris go and just have him. Because whether or not it was his fault, quote unquote, I don't agree with that either. I think he was far from the issue. His confidence still pretty shot, right? You see a quarterback outduel you like that at home, and you're like, oh, geez, especially after what Max Duggan did last year. So I think this week we see probably what they were trying to do against Colorado, I think actually come out to fruition. Mm-hmm. They let a lot of those guys like J.P. Richardson and I'm forgetting one of the other wide receivers, Jojo World. A lot of those guys, I think they come out and flex a little bit. Yeah, because they need it.
I also
everybody on that team needs a nice.
You need the
exhale.
defense to tee off on someone too, because I just the defense when I was rewatching that game is I don't know how you rush 3, drop 8, and everyone's open. Yeah. Still, I don't know how that happens.
I'll tell you how. It's because for some reason Joe Gillespie decided to play 5 yards off every wide receiver, and Sean Lewis is actually that's cool. I'll just run underneath routes the whole time, and we'll just make a move, and we're open. It's what is happening? So there were so many things that went wrong in that game. I think from many different perspectives, but like I mentioned, it was a perfect spot for a get right game.
Yeah,
it's Nicholls. You got Big 12 opener, so don't look ahead either. You got Big 12 opener next week against Houston. I think they'll take care of business. I think they'll look good. Everybody will be like, okay, cool. TCU is probably okay.
Yep.
All right. That'll do it for us. Carter, where will you be again? You will be at the Baylor and Utah game. Mike Craven will be in Lubbock for Oregon at Texas Tech. I will be on my couch watching all these games. Next week I will be at the Texas State home opener. So, yeah, Mallory, you will be also on the couch.
I will.
There
I'll
you
have
go.
my quad box pulled up.
There you go.
College football.
So, yeah, we'll be absorbing everything along with you guys, and we'll be back with a Sunday episode. Please rate, subscribe, everything to all the shows on the Dave Campbell's Republican Football Network. Please tune in Friday as well, Texas Football Tonight on Texan Live and on YouTube. And, of course, tune in later today, 6 p.m., to watch, I forgot his name again, Zena. Ozem. Oh, my goodness. I'm bad at pronunciations. I'm gonna get this kid's name right.
You can do it.
Okay. Zena Umeozulu. Zena Umeozulu from Allen, committing at 6 p.m. right here. or Texan Live, and then YouTube as well. So
what is it between Texas and Oklahoma?
I think it's between.
His brother goes to Texas. I think it's Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think it's between those two schools. So if you're a Sooner fan, if you're a Texas fan, check it out. Or if you're a General fan, maybe you'll see a little switch up. Never know. We'll see. And that'll do it for us. Please, Jimbo Fisher, give us a call. We've talked to 12 of the 13 FBS head coaches. 1-0.
1-0.
Go Rutgers.
Go Rutgers.